So I think there's just a ton of stories we have of people saying like, Ellie's giving me back my evenings because I am not spending, after a full day of meeting with people, I'm not spending them my evening writing up all of my notes. Or I was talking to a woman recently who had a medical issue, and she actually had a tremor in her hand, and she was like, I actually wasn't able to write, like physically write notes as fast as I used to be or as easily as I used to be. And she's like, so from like an accessibility perspective, this is a game changer because it's not just about being attentive and being in the moment, but literally I was struggling to do it anymore.
Hi, my name is Demetri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by JotForm, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. My name is Demetri, and welcome to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. Here in this episode, we have Kristen Habacht from Elly.AI. How you doing?
Great, thanks.
Nice to finally get chatting with you. We're really excited. We haven't had somebody quite in your area of the industry discuss what you're doing with AI. We've had a lot more customer support, sales, all those types of things, but nobody quite yet in the recruiting and HR side of things. So we're really excited to chat. But at first, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you're at in Elly.AI, and then a little bit about what Elly.AI does?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a tech operator for the last 20 years, mostly in sales and revenue. So I was the first revenue hire at Trello. And then we were acquired by Atlassian. So I built out an enterprise sales team for Atlassian for 4 years. And then I was the CEO and president at a Series B, led them through their Series C e-commerce tech company called Shogun, and then was the chief revenue officer at Typeform most recently before joining Ellie. So I have been like in the space, really a lot of PLG companies. So I love making products, being part of products that like people can like just immediately like see the value on, and they hopefully love it and spread the word. And like all those brands that I've been a part of have all been kind of associated with that. And so thinking about how to bring that delightful and fun and easy experience into something like recruiting tech, which has historically not always had maybe the best tech experiences around it. And so that's what we're building out at Ellie, really a better way to find candidates, bring them in, interview them, and make sure that you bring in the best people for your company.
So why do you think that it hasn't been the best experience previously? One, two, how have you been filling that gap?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of things. I think that one is that the hiring process, even though I would argue it's like the most important part of a company is the people who work at the company and who you bring into the company. It's like the thing you're selling and who is out there building and selling it. For whatever reason, I think that piece oftentimes is kind of viewed as like operational overhead. So you said you've talked to a lot of support folks and customer success. I'm sure they have felt the same universe, which is like those kind of sales, marketing, product. Those guys are the shiny ones that get a lot of resources and a lot of tools built for them. Some of those other operational teams are less so the ones that people build for. So one is that I just think it hasn't had that kind of same attention paid to it. The second
Okay.
one I think is that it's not a blueprint business in the sense that like hiring for your company versus hiring for somebody else's company, it's not a rinse and repeat. You can't find the same people, you can't follow the same processes. And a lot of it is left to kind of this feeling of like it's like culture fit, or it's like gut feeling if this person is going to be
Vibes.
a good fit, or yeah, it's vibes, right? It's totally vibes. Like, how do you build that? So I think that's been the other one, and another element of it, which is just like it's not the same as like an email blast that you hope becomes an MQL that signs up for, those are like more repeatable businesses.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point. I guess I hadn't considered that. So then for what you're doing, what are the different ways that you help with that? Because I can imagine it kind of put yourself in a spot where it's a decently complicated business.
Yeah.
Are you like, and I saw a little bit of what you're doing,
Mhm.
but where do you feel like you're able to help? Because is it more in like general processes
Yeah.
that'll help inside of the AI, or sorry, of the recruiting process, or what is it?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things. One is that with the advancements in I think that suddenly you can find insights in conversational data in a way that you wouldn't have been able to before, right? Like if you were
Okay.
hiring for somebody, you would have the interview, you would have a conversation, you would take your notes probably a varying degree. Some people would take really thoughtful notes, some people would take no notes at all. And then you would fill out your scorecard. And again, even if you took really good notes, some amount of that would maybe get into the scorecard for the candidate, some wouldn't. And what you end up doing is you say, well, listen, we got to find more people who, can hit quota and have this kind of background. Well, let's look back at the people who've done well before here and what were the signals of who those people were as the right hire. And like, there's no data. There's no data. Like, you know what I mean? It's like a bunch of like strong hire, liked the guy. Like, there's no real insights
A
on
lot
that.
of it. Yeah, definitely not a lot of insights. Yeah.
Right. So it's like bad data in, bad data out. And so I think what we can do with AI is say, one, you don't have to be a good note taker anymore. AI can write along in the conversation and take the notes for you, pulling out the pieces that are the most helpful. Two, it can update those systems automatically for you. So even if most people recruiting is not their full time job. Like I was a CRO.
Really? Okay.
I would take interviews and I'd go to the next meeting. And so I would have to find time on my day to update the system. So having as much of that automated so it's like just simple. Like I can be as lazy as I want and all the right information can still get into the system. And then on top of that, getting that data there where you can like create your own custom like company algorithm for what the right hiring looks like for you based off of previous success and people who've come in and been successful and then helping you find more people like that. So it's a combination of like helping you ask the right questions, helping you glean the right insight, but also just being able to pull unstructured data is something that AI is I think uniquely suited for that we haven't had before this moment.
And so obviously when I looked at your product, it seemed like there's also the screening aspect to it as well. Maybe speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah. So we're really looking at recruiting, just like if this was a sales process, there's a full cycle, right? There's sourcing. So you got to find the right people to talk to. Some of that is outbound. Then there's people who apply inbound. And right now, what we know for a fact is like every time people are opening up a role, they're getting hundreds, if not thousands of people applying for them. One, because that's the market we're in, but two, AI has made it really easy for people to apply for jobs with like
It
custom,
is. It is.
personalized resumes and personalized cover letters, things you wouldn't have done before. And so we have this sourcing and then we have this inbound. And if you want to try and sort through 1,000 applications, you're not going to get on even 500 phone calls to sort through those. And so is there a way that a candidate can still show you the unique elements of why they're a good fit without you having to allocate people to do all that? And so we are building the AI screener in a sense of really like an enhanced job application. So instead of you making a cover letter, which is what you used to do to highlight all the unique things about yourself,
Yeah.
can you actually just get on and talk about yourself for 5 to 10 minutes and really have an opportunity to show why you're a good fit, but also validate that you really are who you say you are, right? Like if the AI asks you a couple of questions about, how you ran a sales cycle and you have no idea how to answer it, odds are, you've probably fudged a bit on your resume. And so there's the benefit of both painting a full picture of a person, but also validating that the skills they say they have, they really do have.
Yeah. So it seems like you're basically full stack, right? Before, during, and after.
Yeah. That's right.
How have you found because my original background into SaaS was like the AI note, or not AI, but the note taking space and the project management and calendar space. How have you found that adoption's kind of been? Because I know it's kind of hard. Like, are you pretty much covering all of the tools like Outlook, Google Calendar, et cetera, to try to make sure that it's as like seamless as possible? Do they log into an interface to where they see their calendar a little bit differently, like with a different UI? How does that work?
So we're trying to go with the route of meeting people as much where they already do the work. I
Okay.
think a lot
Yeah,
of the
that's fair.
tech yeah, I think a lot of tech in general fails, because it's another place to log in, it's
Yeah, it's like
another
use
place.
us, not the yeah.
Right, exactly, and if I think about, like, the tools that I've always loved that have been the most delightful, they're the ones that fit to my workflow, not force me to fit to
To their
theirs.
yeah.
Right, and so, Ellie is it can do it can join any of your video conferencing calls. It can be on a lot of, recruiters still use phone screens, so it can be you can dial it in basically on the phone and have it be a part of that conversation. But then it'll send you updates in Slack. It'll remind you that your meeting is about to start or Teams or whatever you're using. And that's really where I work, right? Like I'm in Slack, I'm talking to my team there. I'll get a reminder from Ellie, my interview is about to start. It'll tell me about the person I'm about to meet because I don't want to log in to the ATS to look at that because I'm too lazy to do that. Right. So it'll remind me almost like an assistant, right? Like, hey, Kristen, you're about to meet Demetri. This is a couple of things you should know about him. Like,
Yeah.
here's a few questions you should ask that nobody has gotten a chance to dig into. Here's the link to start your meeting. And it'll even like have the link to your LinkedIn. And I just don't have to go anywhere else,
Yeah.
right? And even the same with the scheduling, which is I'm already in an email with the candidate. So I'll just say, "Hey, I'm looping in Ellie. Ellie's gonna find us some time to talk." And Ellie replies in the email, like, "Here are the times Kristen's available. Do these times work?" And you can, in language form, which is the whole thing with AI, be able to go back and forth. And listen, we have Calendly too. Like, there's a benefit to that link. But sometimes it's best to have both options. Like, sometimes just the onus of clicking on a Calendly link is too much for people. Like, they just wanna be told what times you're available, or they wanna tell you what times they're available and just have it work out, and so Ellie can actually just do that right in the email exchange itself.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. I can see a lot of issues with modern products continuing to try to add to your tool stack rather than integrate with. Yeah, it's funny. The term integration, I think, is a bit of a misnomer in like tech. I
Yeah,
don't know if
exactly. I mean, and I think there's always and I've been in this space for so long, right? I mean, there's always the push for like how do you drive people into the product? How do you drive people, deeper into the interface? And there is a benefit to that in a lot of ways. And again, I came from Trello and Atlassian, which is project management tools and like you have to be in it to
hmm
to be working with it, right? But
hmm
but again, I think like some ways that those things have failed is that I I just wanna open a ticket. Like, I just want to put my notes in about the candidate. Like, I don't wanna have to log into these different places. So the more you can meet me where I am, whether it's email or mess at like Slack or Teams or whatever it is, the more likely I'll use it. And really that's what you want. You really want user adoption. Whether you go into the interface or not, I don't really care.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair. I mean, there are some things in the ecosystem of work right now like that, and have been the case for about a decade, where it's Microsoft and Google, and then I guess Slack kind of disrupted the chat portion of that.
Right.
But okay, like those are the places people are going to be at, and meeting them there is okay, right? Meeting doing better than they're doing is okay, because they're not going to make hyper focused. I mean, you remember Google? What was it called? Tables or something? Do
Yeah.
you remember
Yeah.
Google? God,
Yeah.
whatever that was. That was awful. It was on the list of things that they started, and it was in their like little incubator kind of area, and then they never followed through on it because that's not
Yeah.
what they're focused on.
Right. Exactly.
And and you can really help with that. So, what have been some of the best sort of case studies or examples of improvements you've seen with businesses since you've
Yeah.
launched?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things, right, that we've been able to help with, and I kind of view it as like there's the productivity side of the world, and then there's the making better decisions side of the world. So from a productivity side of the world, like this recruiting in general is a very time intensive and interactive job by its very nature, right? Similar to sales, which is that
Yeah.
if you're doing your job right, you're on phone calls or video calls a lot. And your whole job is to really dig in and understand if someone's going to be a good fit, which means you have to be engaged. But at the same time, all this data and insights about this conversation has to go into systems of record or to the notes for the next person who's going to meet that candidate, whatever it is. So I think there's just a ton of stories we have of people saying, like, Ellie's giving me back my evenings because I am not spending after a full day of meeting with people, I'm not spending them my evening writing up all of my notes. Or we've had people who've said, like, I was talking to a woman recently who had a medical issue, and she actually had a tremor in her hand, and she was like, I actually wasn't able to write, like, physically write notes as fast as I used to be or as
Oh
easily
no.
as I used to be.
Yeah.
And she's like, so from like an accessibility perspective, this is a game changer because it's not just about being attentive and being in the moment, but literally I was struggling to do it anymore. So there's a bunch of stories like that. And then I think so hey, we can hire better, faster because, or we can have the team more enabled and engaged because Ellie's doing these things. But then we also have people saying, because we could see more people through the screener, because we wouldn't have been able to talk to this many people otherwise. Like, we've actually found some candidates who maybe on the surface we wouldn't have hired who've come in and been great fits for us. The flip side is that there are some people who were definitely not being truthful in their application, and we saved ourselves the time and mental energy of having, and everyone knows, like, the number of times you've gotten on a call and in, like, 2 minutes, you're like, "This is not the person I'm going to hire." So being able to just sort through things like that. So I think there's a lot of interesting ways the tech can help people.
Well, I definitely, I mean, I'm an employer, and I know that for me, a lot of the initial screening calls I wish I just didn't have to do.
Yeah.
So I can totally respect and like to hear that. My original thoughts on this tool were that it was probably going to be its own platform in a way that it was in there, but now that I understand it's more integrated with stuff, what are some of like the most common integrations that you've heard have helped people the most? Like, for example, I saw that Slack was on there. For me, I,
Yep.
I live in Slack. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable how much I live in Slack, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Slack and Teams are both huge, right? The ability to just, and I used to do this all the time at Typeform, especially because we were a fully distributed team. I would say, like, to my recruiting coordinator, like, who am I about to meet? Like, anything I'm supposed to focus on with this person? And I would never want to go in and update my notes. So I would send my Slacks back to them and say, like, I'm a hire. This is why. So Ellie's Mimic can mimic that exact experience, and so that's a big one. Ellie will integrate with all the, like, major applicant tracking systems. So, like, instead of having to go into Greenhouse or instead of having to go into Lever or whatever it is, Ellie can both pull the information and push the information. So wherever you're at. So that's a huge one as well. So those are the big integrations. I mean, things like Calendly, there's native integrations where Ellie can join any meeting that comes from a specific, link. Um, so yeah, there's quite a bit. I think just kind of depends on where people are at. But the ATSs, the communications, the voiceover, being able on be on phone calls is a big one too.
Um, is the tool that you have integrated onto calls, is it video as well, or is it just text? Because sometimes there's, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's
Um,
videos both.
that's nice. Because some tools are only text right now, and I don't think it's whatever people want. But the video side of it, have you had any interesting, like with the early screening calls? Is the goal for this to, I guess, what's the goal for this if you're a company to get out of it from a staffing standpoint, right? Because a big question in AI right now is like the advent of, entry level positions are more so getting parts of their work phased out now, maybe even most of it later in a couple of years. What's like the long term goal for how this impacts staffing, in the next couple of years?
Yeah. y-
It's
it's
funny, staffing for HR, which is a
yeah,
funny thing to
yeah.
say, but
It's interesting. I think this is one of those things where it's like there's a lot of talk of roles being eliminated. And I think that junior roles being eliminated. I think maybe it's true, but I also think that there's a lot of hiring right now for other kinds of things that maybe weren't being hired for before, right? And so, I mean, I think AI rules for sure. Like I see a lot more like, AI prompt engineering or like folks who understand, who are not necessarily engineers themselves, but people who understand how to architect good prompts in the company and
Absolutely, yeah.
like things like that. So hiring is still very strong. We actually have a lot of customers who are not tech companies. Like, it's important to remember there's a whole wide world out
World, yeah.
there of, like, companies that are not tech, that are still hiring, and those roles are not going anywhere, and so a really good one that I talk about is, like, we have a lot of companies that do logistics, manufacturing, construction, home health, healthcare in general, and it's like we have an aging population in general right now. Like
You're right.
healthcare, home healthcare, not going anywhere. And odds are your nurse not going to be replaced by AI anytime soon. So there are
Absolutely, yeah.
there are just a lot of roles that still need to be filled. And I think what the AI tools like what we're building at Ellie, they're not replacing recruiters, they're not replacing those functions, but what they are doing is letting those people focus on the parts of their job that they really are excellent at and that they love, which no one ever says, "You know what? I love the data entry part of my job.
No.
I wish
Nobody
I
likes
could
that.
stop talking to people all day long and just instead like really get good data into the systems." So, even within that, I think it's taking away the parts that people just didn't enjoy of the work they were doing.
Okay. Well, that answers the question pretty well because a consistent theme that we're seeing with interviews on the podcast right now is that the tools are helping take roles and allow people to utilize their brain in the ways that they'd like to. It goes back to I gotta get this date, by the way, because I keep quoting it. It's Steve Jobs said, "For bicycle for the mind is what the computer's going to be." All right.
Right.
And he said this in an interview, I believe it was in the 1980s. It was 1990. I take it back. So in 1990, it's probably right when he went back to Apple or right before he got kicked out of
Mm.
Apple, whichever one. And that was a weird time frame in there. People
One of
forget.
those 2.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like now we're actually seeing it fully come to fruition because while we moved a lot of knowledge work from or a lot of work to quote knowledge work, a good percentage of it was just busy work that was augmented by processing power.
Yeah.
Now what we're seeing is we're finally adjusting to a work-based environment that has that true, I think, bicycle in nature because there's less busy work with the more advent of AI. So yeah, I liken it to there was a photographer that had a negative feeling about how images were
Yeah.
being taken by AI. And then he came to the epiphany that, well, he could just prompt the AI image generators much better than anybody else could because he gets how images should look and how composition works and all these sorts
Yeah.
of things. So that's the best analogy that I've heard.
Yeah.
An aha moment I heard from somebody that made me think differently about this was, oh, well, that's true. Like just because you quote can make an image with AI does not necessarily mean that it won't be the photographer doing it. They can just sit at home. So maybe that's kind of, what it is for what you guys are doing. Like the people who know how to recruit well will be able to utilize a tool that augments, it's a bicycle for their mind in such a way. Is that fair enough?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, you know, what's gonna happen is we're gonna want people who are the best at the job,
Uh-huh.
right? And so when I say that, it's like being a good recruiter isn't just screening through candidates and picking people. There's a huge amount of like selling the opportunity for people, right? Like, why should I work here? Why should I take this salary you're offering? Why should I, commute 4 days a week to your office, whatever it is, right? And what you're gonna find is that those kind of skills are gonna be refined and, built and worked on more, and there's gonna be more time and effort to do things like that, than just, like, sorting through 5,000 resumes, and that hopefully means you hire better people, which hopefully means that those people stick around longer, which hopefully means that the company grows faster, which means that there's more roles to hire for because you're growing. So it really should be something where it ultimately benefits for the good for everyone. I'm a firm believer that I don't think there's gonna be the world of a bunch of these companies that are running with 5 employees, and it's just blinking dots selling to other blinking dots. Like, I do think that maybe that's the first wave of people thinking that they'll get rid of people and that'll be the efficiency, but I think the actual unlock will be realizing that, like, if I could keep my head count or even grow my head count, but instead of putting them on this busy work, putting them on the next big thing that unlocks the next move for the company, that's gonna be our actual first mover advantage. Those people are gonna be the ones that do really well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like a lot of the concern with the massive layoffs and all that kind of stuff, I do think it's a little bit real at this moment that most businesses are thinking, how could I hire less, right? And how could I optimize with this? But there does reach a certain point where the humanity is going to be analyzed in such a way where we're like, okay, this is obviously we need the human input and we need, and I agree with you. I don't think it's going to
Yeah,
be dots selling to dots. Like
right.
what I find intriguing about what you're doing is it's almost a requirement that you exist. And maybe this was part of your aha moment because of the customized nature and the web scraping, and web scraping also leads to mass applications, right? So
Yeah,
like
that's right.
you are not limited now by your ability to want to be on LinkedIn and just control V for hours,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
And that was actually like a real differentiator to whether you wanted to get a job before. And now it's like, okay, well, if you know how to set up a scraping tool to do it for you, you're going to be able to
totally.
win. But then at some point, it's going to be so easy that everyone's going to know how to do this. So you kind of had to. Is this something that came to mind when you started seeing some of this
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, we've spent my co-founder Nick and I have spent so many hours. I mean, we were hiring managers ourselves, but just so many hours talking to recruiters. And the last 6 months, I will say, the chorus of people in talent acquisition saying to us that they're just being blown up with applications has changed. And they all think that it's because of AI. And both the ability to like just mass apply, but also customize your application for each job so fast. Like, oh, this is for a project manager role and da da da. Okay, chat GPT, like adjust my resume to highlight project manager elements. And so now there's this shift. There's two big shifts happening right now, maybe three. One is cutting through the volume. Two is validating that you are who you say you are and can do the things that you said you're doing. And then I think the third is making sure you are who you said you are and you can do the things you said you're doing, ironically, without leveraging AI is the other piece of it, right? And that's where the cluey stuff has kind of come in of like, we want AI. AI is the thing that'll replace us all. Oh, you're not using AI to get this job though, right? It's a very interesting moment in time where it's like we want to make sure you're not a cheater either at the same time.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing because AI is definitely something that helps people at their jobs in a lot of ways, but it is a crutch, to be
Yeah,
honest. And without
totally. Yeah.
AI, could you do it? And what made you go with the name, by the way, of
Of
Kelly AI?
Ellie.
Ellie AI, sorry.
Yeah, so we the company was originally called Tabbed,
Yeah, I did
and
see that when I'm doing my research. Yeah, it was called Tabbed. And then, yeah,
yeah,
what?
and it I think we were trying to find a way for it to be slightly more friendly sounding, something that was a little bit more recognizable, and so the name kind of came from the thought of, like, elephants, which is like an elephant never forgets any part of the conversation and theory, and so having Ellie kind of be your personal elephant that never forgets anything that is
Personal
being talked
elephant.
about, yeah.
Do you think, I think it sounds a little bit more natural, probably, too. Like it definitely
Yeah.
sounds more, yeah.
I think there's this interesting thing too where I think there's a backlash to some extent against some of these tools having names that can be perceived as being like a woman's name or a feminine name of like, oh, well,
Hmm.
you made an AI that's a woman who takes the notes. Like,
Oh,
how
geez, I didn't even
refreshing.
put that together.
And so I like that it sounds friendly. I like that it sounds like a person that's part of the team who's helping.
Yeah,
Um,
that's where my head went. I'm not sure with
yeah,
the
yeah.
other people. Yeah.
But, I think it's interesting because one of the things that we very purposefully done is we've not personified, um, Ellie. Like, when Ellie is on the
Sure.
call, it's not an AI avatar of a person. Like, we've always been
Yeah, that
very
can be a thing. People
transparent
do
that
that.
that is, and some people do that, and that's a personal thing. I've always believed that, like, we don't wanna dupe you, right? You don't think you're showing up to an interview and you actually are meeting an AI. Like, if you are gonna do the AI screener, we're very transparent that it's an AI screen that you're about to engage in, right? And we don't pretend we're a person. If you ask us if we're AI, we don't say like, "No, what do you mean? I'm definitely a real person interviewing you." So, we believed in that transparency through the process, even with our human sounding name.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I was curious about the name because when I researched it said specifically you switched from Tab to Ellie, and I was curious, where that comes from. But okay, yeah, Ellie. Yeah, no, I think it's hard getting a name right. But also, there's so many different apps out there that have names that are very basic, and
Yeah.
then it works. Like Notion,
Yeah,
I don't,
exactly.
just
Yep.
one word. I think it's nice in that respect. The Clay, you know what Clay
Yep,
is? Like
clay,
the
yeah.
enrichment tool. What does that have to
Yeah,
do with enrichment? I have no idea.
right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it just sticks. So no,
Yeah,
it's good.
names are funny. Yeah, I mean, Trello, when I was at Trello, people would always be like, "Oh, how'd you guys come up with a name?" And Michael Pryor, who is the founder of Trello, always talks about, like, they were gonna go do this, demo days thing. They had to have a name. They went to go register trellis, like the thing that a plant grows on, because it gives it structure, but the
Oh,
web domain was already taken, and then it was like one of those things where it's like, "If you like this web domain, think about these names instead," and that's how they
there's
picked
no
Trello.
really Trello is based off of a GoDaddy. If you like this,
Yeah,
that's
basically,
crazy.
yeah, that's exactly right, and
That's
people were like,
crazy.
"Oh, it's such a great name, it sounds like hello, it sounds like Jello, it's so fun sounding, you guys are so brilliant," and it's like,
And you're like, sure.
"Yeah, yep." That was always the intention.
That's so funny, actually. I like that. That's good lore. That's very good lore.
Yeah.
What um what are you noticing is the biggest hurdle when trying to get people to sign up for Ellie or even maybe just implement it into their current workflows?
I I think the people who are ready to use it are ready to use it, and I don't think we're
Mm,
having I mean, it's super user friendly, it's built
okay.
from a product-led growth perspective, meaning, like, you should be able to get up and running with no salesperson or anything helping you with it. Um, I think it's more I think AI, again, like, if you remove yourself from the tech bubble that I'm gonna assume almost all of us are probably
Yeah,
in
I'm
if
in
we're
one.
if
Yeah,
we're
I
in
know.
this
Yeah.
conversation, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Most people are still not very familiar with AI, and if they are familiar, it's very light, right? It's like a very limited amount of engagement with it, maybe some chat GPT usage or something. And so a big part of it is just getting people comfortable with the idea of like, "Oh, do I really not have to also still take notes while this thing is going? Or do can I really trust it to, have this conversation?" And so it's almost like just the AI comfort level more than an Ellie comfort level. And again, like in tech, we're all pushed to do it, but that's not the same in every industry.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about we're in a bubble. And this is not to disparage any former guests. I think you're the first guest that acknowledged it before me that like having this conversation equals we're in a bubble.
Yeah.
Or like, it's very intriguing to me. Do you, I mean, I've heard different stats on this, but I have recently heard that basically, I don't know, 90% of companies, are not necessarily using AI to any sort of meaningful impact. And what does that mean? Like, sure, ChatGPTing your emails does something, right? But that is the bare bones of what you can be doing here. Where have you found within interacting with these customers? You're saying your product led growth, so you haven't really done much marketing. Have you noticed that they're blown away by what you guys are doing? Because there's a difference between like understanding it can exist and being like, oh, thank goodness somebody made that. And you can do this? Those are two very different reactions. What are the kind of reactions you're getting?
I mean, we get a lot of the second. We get a lot of the like,
You can do this?
this is like magical.
Yeah.
I'm blown away. It's more than I ever thought it could do. Um, a lot of that. We have an extremely high NPS. I mean, people just love the product, and some of that I think is those things I talked about before in terms of like it's just easy to use, it finds you natively, all that kind of stuff. But some of it is also just like it just feels magical. Like it right, and especially because Ellie can do a lot, just like any AI tool. I mean, it can learn a lot about like how you like things to be written up, how you like handoffs to be done, the format you like, and it can get to the point where it's like it's doing what used to take me all this time to do, and it's doing it better, and people are just kind of blown away by that. So I would say there's definitely a good bit of that. Um, there's a
You
good
said
bit of that
Did
still.
you say MPS? What is that acronym? I
Yeah,
don't
Net
know.
Promoter Score. So
Oh, I
basically,
heard M. I heard
no,
M. So I
and
was like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, sorry.
okay,
Yeah.
got it. Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a great sign. And just once again on your background, is this so you have a co-founder? How do you? And the co-founder is. Sorry, that was a question. I enunciated that poorly. And who's the co-founder?
My co-founder is Nick Mahaney.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
Nick
how
is
did you know each other? Yeah.
the product guy, I would say. And but I think this is one of those AI moments of like neither one of us are the engineer, right? And so this is really
Interesting.
something
Yeah.
where like it has, I mean, we have an amazing couple of engineers on the team now, but I think that is one of the things that AI has allowed, that maybe wasn't the case in tech a year or 2, 3 years ago, whatever it was, which is I would never have thought of being able to be at this position in a company this early on because like I can't code. I'm not the person who is going to do that kind of stuff. But there is a level of great equalization that AI is giving people to start companies.
Yeah. So how did it get started between the two of you?
Yeah, so Nick started the company. He kind of, like, as a hackathon almost, put Ellie together just on the thought of trying to solve this problem, and then he did that for a little while before wanting to find a CEO, and so, we basically kinda got matched up together from a recruiting process, so it just shows you the power of good recruiting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love hearing founder stories and stuff like that. So it's interesting. So he hacked it together, but he's not a founder. So did he AI augment like vibe coded this
Yep,
together?
he just vibe coded it. Yep, exactly.
That's incredible. Do you know, was there a platform he used specifically that you're aware of if you're comfortable with saying it?
I probably should know, but I don't know the
That's
early
okay.
days. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing mattered before I came around. Like
Well,
the
of
whole
course.
world
Right.
began
Yeah.
once I
Duh.
was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Duh. Of course. Of course. No, that's interesting. I really like to hear that because that's one of the, I think, amazing things about vibe coding. Like I'm a pretty technical person. I don't know how to code, but I basically, for all intents and purposes can, because
Yeah.
there's all these cool tools now that, if you understand how to prompt well,
Yeah.
I was like very, very into, and probably one of the more adept people I know at like automations and whatnot. So and API documentation. So if you
Yeah.
know how that works and you get how databases
Yeah.
work, you now with vibe coding you can just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's very incredible. And you've been around and so how long do you know that like vibe code hackathon took?
So he started that in kind of late 23, and then I joined in December of 24. So I've been like what is that, 7 months or so now at the company. So yeah, I mean he had a couple of engineers then after that. So we're not all
Got it.
held together by just vibes, but
No, for
there's
sure. Yeah.
real code in there now. But yeah.
That's very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And have you felt just at this company, what you think you've been able to bring, to the company that came from some of your previous experiences, because you have a lot, it seems like. I
Yeah.
mean, the lore behind the Trello name, so there's a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that I think personally when you have a great co-founder relationship, it's not necessarily even just that like, hey, this person's handling this part of the business and you're handling this part of the business. It's that the two people together push each other to think about things differently. And so it's tennis game, right? It's a volley. And so there's a difference between hitting the wall yourself with the ball and having somebody on the other side hitting it back to you, even though in theory it should feel like it's the same thing, but it's just not. And so I think there's just an element of like, I know what I've seen. I know where things have gone well. I know where things should have gone better and went off the rails. And pushing on those kind of elements as we build, I hope has been helpful. Along the way. So I think there's just been that benefit of like hopefully we're better together because we're both pushing from slightly different perspectives as we build it.
Yeah. So, that's a very good point. Compartmentalizing things too much in regards to like what people do, I think takes away from the collaborative nature of, how a company works. And yeah, that's fair. I think it's totally fair.
I think
Is
when
there
you're
any?
this early on, all you have is the collaborative nature. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like when I was at and it still was a fairly small company, but when I was at Typeform, right, and we have a couple hundred employees, it's a completely different experience, right? You have teams and orgs and departments and cross-functional KPIs and politics and goals and all this stuff that you're constantly managing, and having that like strong operational arm is extremely important. Not that it's not as important when it's six people, but it's just different. Like I'm not spending time in decks or holding people accountable to KPI goals and stuff like that. It's like every day we're in it, pushing, thinking of things, listening to feedback, iterating quickly. I think that's all you have this early on. Like me being really, really good at operational rigor, it's going to help us eventually. I'm not sure it's very important right now.
Yeah, that's fair. And how do you feel like working in at this size of a company versus where you're at? I mean, like even Typeform, right? Was the last company you
Yeah.
said you're at? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's a larger company.
It is. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 100 million in revenue and yeah,
Yeah.
just completely different.
Good forum platform. Good forum platform.
Yeah.
I'm just, what is it like just from a, maybe not lifestyle, but work standpoint? Like, what does it feel like in comparison?
Yeah. I think, I'm incredibly grateful for the experiences at places like Typeform and Atlassian, which was a public company when I was there. It was still like we were maybe 3,000 employees. I think they're like, I don't know, 10,000 now. It's just even that very different. But you just keep getting removed. You're one step removed every single time, right? Like if you're a really great salesperson and the company is growing, odds are you don't stay doing sales very long. You become the sales manager and then the VP of sales and then, the CRO eventually. And like the time you spend doing that part of the job is almost negligible. And then you're just like really good at making decks and really good at doing board meetings and I've gotten really good at those things. But you kind of aren't doing you're doing a job. You're just not doing that job
Maybe you just don't find it as edifying because it's not what you
anymore.
wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also you're working really, really hard for a thing that isn't yours, and it can feel like it's yours all you want, but it's not. Like, I've also left all those places, and guess what? They're all still running.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Exactly.
doing
Yeah.
fine. And so it's like, yeah, if I'm gonna spend all this time and energy and mental capacity on something, I'd really like it to be mine, like my thing, like where I get to have it. And so I think that's the really exciting thing about doing it like this. And we'll screw up, I'm sure, a ton and we'll figure stuff out too. But they'll be ours. All those things, the ups and the downs will all be ours uniquely.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very cool thing to be in that position. It's a different experience no matter how high up you get if it's not yours.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Is there anything in AI or AI agents specifically that you're really excited about? This is something I always like to ask guests during the
Yeah.
episode.
I I think that there's all these moments in history, right, where the world wasn't the same after it started, right? Like the personal computer, right? Electricity. Like there's things that it's like we're not all like waking up at the rise of the sun and going to bed when it's dark out in between working the fields anymore because we have, like machinery
Tech, yeah.
and electricity and all of these things. And in those moments, there's always that, like, is this gonna ruin the world vibe, I think, and then eventually, hopefully, it sets to a place where it's like, no, it's helped us become I don't spend an entire week doing laundry anymore because I have a washing machine and a dryer now. Like things are better because these parts of my life that maybe weren't great before have been improved by technology. I think, and I don't think this is a particularly hot take. I think that's where AI is for us right now, hopefully. The question is if we use it right. And that goes back to like, if you use it to just fire everybody and everyone is now like unemployed and can't, we're all just, working the data labeling mines, like less interesting. The hope is that it frees us up from all those pieces that we hate doing, like the data entry pieces and the making the pivot tables and all the monotonous parts of our
You don't
jobs.
love making pivot tables?
I know. I actually do. I shouldn't say that.
It's
But yeah,
it's funny. Some people actually high key do love making pivot tables. I used to work in paid search, and like you had to know how to make pivot tables.
yeah.
I'll tell you that
Yes.
much. You could not lie about that on your job.
No, no.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I've gotten really good at a bunch of stuff in Excel, like most I think executives at this point in their career. If I never had to do it again, I would not be sad. So it's like can you free us up from those things so that we can spend the time really thinking about the next interesting thing to make the world better. Like that has to be the hope of AI. Like, and I think that's a slightly different hope than maybe a lot of billionaire investors would say they hope AI does, but for me, I think it has to be that it makes the world better. I have to hope that, or else I don't know why we're doing it.
I think it's an admirable goal. I keep making the joke. Have you seen the show Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite thing is the first episode and the entire first season, the joke is we're doing this to make the world a better place. Do you remember that thing?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of founders actually do want to make it better. But that show has this funny, like kind of cynical look at the show, Gavin Belson and those types of characters are caricatures of real people. And no, I think it's amazing talking to founders like you because it seems like the goal is, people have X problem. It's kind of annoying. Let's make that not annoying anymore for them. And, I think that does make the world a better place because the less time people are just spent irritated, click-clacking is the term I use for it. Just mindless, like it's going to be good. So yeah, that's awesome. I think we are at the inflection point and we're at the inflection point of this podcast episode ending. So with that being said, is there any last thing you'd like to plug about Elly.AI? Probably just go to check it out, but still, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, would love anyone to check it out. If you're hiring, if you are trying to be hired, yeah, check it out, reach out, give me feedback. Like I said, this early on, we love hearing from people. So, yeah, I think that's the big one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. We appreciate it. Everyone, please listen to not only this episode, but other ones by hitting us with a follow on podcast platforms, liking and reviewing this podcast. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.